Kia ora, good evening. Rebounding dairy production drove a 1.4% increase in gross domestic product for the September 2013 quarter, the largest quarterly increase in almost 4 years. Dairy's strong production was the main driver towards a 17% rise in agriculture, a 25-year high despite drought conditions earlier in the year. Dairy product manufacturing also increased this quarter, contributing to a 1.5% rise in total manufacturing. Agricultural and manufacturing production increases were partly offset by declines in housing investment, down 8.5% from the previous quarter, and construction and business services down 1% and 0.8% respectively. Economic activity for the year ended September rose 2.6% according to Statistics New Zealand. Invercargill's down on rainfall and sunshine hours for the month to date, despite a good start to December. And with less than a week to go before the annual summer holidays, meteorologist Andy Fraser is taking a punt that Christmas could bring showers to much of the South Island.
Another low is going to come through on firstly this weekend. From Saturday morning through to Sunday, we're likely to have some heavy rain, perhaps on Saturday morning. Strong, cooler southwesterly winds stretching into Sunday again, so the weekend's looking pretty unfortunately rough. There may be a wee bit of a break in the early part of next week, but right at the longest range of reliable forecasting, it looks like yet another low is going to come through the Tasman and may give us a risk of unpleasant weather around Christmas Day. So anybody planning for Christmas Day outside, I better have backup B. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but 7 days ahead's a long way. But it does look slightly dodgy.
As far as people heading out of town going to Central Otago, which is often a popular spot for southerners to go to, what can they expect in that area?
Well, if the computer models are correct for Wednesday, that middle of next week period, the weather might be a little bit unsettled up there as well. In fact, on both this coming weekend, the west coast could get quite a lot of rain and the mountain spine of the South Island, and that may repeat itself on Wednesday. But once again, I have to emphasise that 7 days is a long way ahead, but it does put a question mark over that Christmas period, really over much of the South Island.
Using your predictor then, Andy, where would the place to be on Christmas Day this year?
Well, I'm a terrifically patriotic Southlander, and of course an Invercargill is a great spot to be, and I have to work on Christmas Day, so I reckon Invercargill will be the spot to be.
The stage is set for Stadium Southland's biggest ever show, the ILT Christmas at the Stadium show tomorrow night. Final preparations were underway today with sound checks for the headline acts, including this year's X Factor winner Jackie Thomas and finalists Morehouse. The 2-hour show's packed with entertainment like dance performances from the Rock and Roll Club, Lamuse Dance Studio and Shelley Cootes Dance Academy. The Invercargill Musical Theatre Company will perform items from Les Mis and 80s classics, while Brian Townley, Simon Green and David McMeeking will also take to the stage. Stadium Southland management are urging those with tickets to the 2-hour show to arrive early. The fishing over the festive season looks promising, with river and lake conditions in the southern region ideal, according to Southern Region Fish and Game Operations Manager Zane Moss. Mr Moss says fish and game officers will be patrolling fishing spots over the break, checking that all anglers have a current licence to fish.
People need licences to go fishing, and that's obviously well understood by Kiwis. You always have had, so it's no great surprise. But yeah, there'll be a lot of people out and about fishing rivers, getting a tent under the willow trees somewhere, and certainly the way the summer's shaping up, it's looking like it's going to be really good.
What are the main fish species people are getting around Southland?
Yeah, the main trout that people target is the brown trout. It's by far and away our most common one. In the Waia catchment, we've got rainbow trout as well. So in the Waia River, Maraoa, and the lakes, we've got rainbow trout as well, and they're pretty commonly caught in that catchment, but they're not in the other catchments of Southland primarily.
So you've been monitoring fish stocks. How are they looking? Are there any areas where you would encourage people not to be fishing?
No.
Let's find some secret spots.
Well, yeah, we do get in trouble for advertising some spots that tend to be every spot someone's secret spot, really. We drift dived the Upper Matara earlier in the week, and very good numbers of trout up there, which to be fair there always is, and that's a relatively challenging place to catch trout, but there's a lot there, and that's pretty popular. Through Nokamai Station, that sort of area, Garston, those sorts of areas, a lot of people holiday up there, nice weather and lots of fish. But most of our rivers, Aparima, Ariti, the Waia, they've all, I sound like a salesman, but they've all got good stocks of fish. We're quite lucky really, so probably won't matter where you go, there'll be trout there and in pretty good numbers.
Fish and Game will obviously be out checking on those licences, but will you get a bit of fishing in?
Can't comment in case my boss is watching, but yeah, bound to get a wee bit of fishing done myself for sure.
It's important though for your boss to know that you're actually experiencing the experience.
Well, you need to be able to relate to licence holders, so you need to be able to fish yourself and hopefully pass on a tip or two. Not that I claim to be an expert, but certainly be doing some fishing over the holidays for sure.
The Invercargill Public Library staff were today proving their talents aren't confined to all things literary. It turns out there's a few that can hold a Christmas tune. Library Administration and Communications Assistant Cindy Mulrooney says their Christmas performance is always a special one. She says the staff love bringing Christmas joy into the library and celebrating with regulars and the public. The lyrical librarians performed classic carols such as We Three Kings and Old Little Town of Bethlehem, as well as modern favourites accompanied by John Perry on piano.
The old and the young, a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
And time for a quick Christmas message from His Worship the Mayor of Invercargill, Tim Shadbolt.
On behalf of the Invercargill City Council, I'd like to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a fantastic New Year.
Stay with us after the break. We speak to retiring marketing manager Gary Muir on his time with the Invercargill Licensing Trust. Welcome back. Long-serving Invercargill Licensing Trust Sales and Marketing Manager Gary Muir is stepping down next April after clocking up 40 years with the organisation. Mr Muir says he's seen entertainment trends change dramatically in the last 40 years, from the days of beer halls with enormous car parks to the introduction of 24-hour licensing. Hunter Andrews first asked Gary Muir how 2013 had been for the ILT.
To say it's been tough would be an understatement. I mean, we're still facing difficult times. You know, I think the province is still well and truly in the recession. I hope that we're coming out of it, and we're no different than anyone else in town. And it's been tough going, but yeah, it's the same for everyone, and we're going not bad given the circumstances.
Yes, the entertainment budget is often first to be cut from a household budget, isn't it?
Oh, I think so. Yes, yeah. The sort of going out. You know, you don't dine out near as much, and you do tend to sort of maybe drink at home and look at how doing things differently, and we get affected like anyone else when that happens.
You'd be very encouraged to see that, well, tomorrow, in fact, the Christmas special concert at the stadium. Good to see the stadium being used.
Yeah, no, I think that's just an example of what's to come. I mean, it was devastating for the town, obviously, when the stadium fell down, and you know, because it means so much for Invercargill and the province. And this is kind of the first step of the reopening of the new stadium, which is state of the art, world class.
Now,
it'll be great.
Moving on now, putting the focus on you, in fact, it's been 40 years you've announced your retirement. But rather alarmingly in the paper you stated that you didn't know where that 40 years had gone quite quickly. It's quite frightening.
Well, it is quite frightening, and I think the people in the same boat as me would say the same thing. You know, you sort of start and you blink, and then you're at the finish line, so to speak. So, and you look around and sort of say, well, where did that 40 years go? So yeah, it was a bit like that. But to be fair, we crammed a lot into that 40 years, and that's pretty good.
You didn't intend to be here for long, did you?
No, yeah, it's a long story, but I won't bore you with that. But yeah, no, I came down to Invercargill thinking I might be here for 2 or 3 years, and then work out where I was going to head from there. Didn't work out that way. The position I had then and everything I've done through the trust has been a challenge, and it's been rewarding, and there's always been something different, and there's always been new challenges on the horizon, and so every day you wake up there's something else to do. So never got bored, never had time to think about whether I should be here or not. So then all of a sudden 40 years clicks over.
How different is your role today to then 40 years? Certainly things have changed in 4 decades around entertainment, conferences, that sort of thing. Yeah,
I think things have evolved. And I think as a country, global communication has changed, and where things were a bit slow back in the early days in terms of what you did and how often you saw change. Over the last, I would say, 25 years, change has just been rapid, and everyone has to adapt to that, and that provides new challenges, and you have to look at doing things differently. When I first came down here in 1973, the only places you could dine were in hotels. You know, we had the Grand Hotel, the Kelvin Hotel, Dessler's was closed the day I arrived, and the Cecil Hotel. So there was, apart from coffee shops, they were about the only three places you could really dine back then.
And the bars themselves are quite different now, aren't they? If you look at the old Clyde and that sort of thing, they are quite almost beer halls.
Yeah, the old Clyde. I'm sure there's a few that would testify to that being the flying jug back in its day. But it served a purpose. But that was the way it was back then, and the drinking culture was slightly different. There was no such thing as having food or whatever. It wasn't a requirement. Now all of those things have changed, and so now when you talk about a tavern, you're not really talking about a tavern, you're talking about a restaurant, you're talking about a social place for females, males, just a whole lot of different things have to be taken into consideration when you're looking at what you'd call a new age tavern development.
You mentioned the last 25 years being particularly busy. Well, we've got the onset of gaming machines, haven't we, which certainly boosted what the ILT could contribute back to the community, but also longer opening hours.
Yeah, well, again, in the early 70s, the opening hours were 10 o'clock, although that was the latest you could open. Then they changed that, they went to 11 o'clock, and then in the 80s, I'm not just quite sure what time we had those extended hours that took it through. In some cases, you could trade 24 hours a day. I remember at the Don Lodge, or certainly the Sugar Shack days, we were trading through till 6:30 in the morning. And then the advent in the late 80s of gaming introduced into the country certainly gave the licensing trust the ability to even distribute further funds into the local community, and that was really good for the local community. Some people will say they're opposed to gaming machines or whatever, but the situation was that the government of the day introduced it, and you either went with it or you didn't, and it provided a benefit, and at least all of the benefit it provided in the south went straight back into Invercargill. And there's been many places, if you have a look around the city, it doesn't matter whether you're looking at Splash Palace, Stadium, Southland, you can just about anything you want to mention will have been touched by our ability to provide substantial funding.
For you yourself, you're going quietly into retirement. Will we see you around? Have you got a few projects on?
Yes, I mean, the big R word, I'll be around for a wee while. I'm officially retiring in April, but I've got a number of projects which I've agreed to see through, and there'll be a process with those that are taking over that I'm happy to sort of help with. So no, you're not getting rid of me that quickly. I'll be here for a bit longer.
And that's it from us. Next up on Sport, Tom Conroy talks with Joseph Romanos from the news team. Good evening.